Welcome to Impact. I'm Philip Morris from Proctor's and the interviewer for the arts segment. Our guest today is Keith Prey, saxophonist, teacher, educator, camp counselor. Man, Keith, you are an amazing guy. How did you start? How did you get the instrument first? What brought you to the sax?
Well, I always wanted to play an instrument since I was as long as I can remember, and it took me a while, but eventually I convinced my school to let me play by ninth grade, and they let me in the band program. And the day I played my first note on my saxophone, I told my mother that I'm going to go into music, and she said, "Yeah, whatever, sure, okay."
Really? So what happened the first time you blew the horn?
Well, like I said, I always wanted to play an instrument, and I always dreamt of being a musician, but I never realized it was a career option. Up until that first note on my saxophone, I wanted to play. Actually, I didn't want to play. I wanted to be in the military. I was going to be a Marine. That was my whole goal since I was in kindergarten up through probably ninth grade. So, played my first note, and there was something about the way it worked, and it sounded terrible, and it was, but there was something that drew me in, and went home and played outside for a long time with my saxophone, and just started practicing. And wasn't probably about a year later I did my first gig, which obviously probably didn't sound all that great, but that got me interested in performing more. I grew up in the Adirondacks, went to school at Ausable Valley, which is a very small school, and had a great band teacher.
I was going to ask why I had to wait till ninth grade, because it was a small school and no instruments.
It's funny, actually. The reason why I had to wait, education can be funny sometimes, and in order to get an instrument, I had to take an aptitude test, and apparently I didn't have the aptitude to be a musician. So, or get a band instrument at the time. So I just kept trying to take the test over and over again, and eventually I gave up. And I had an older cousin who was in the band, and he said, "Why don't you just go talk to the band teacher?" So I did, and he was like, "Sure, just join the band." I said, "Oh, okay."
In Cornell, there's a school called the School of Labor Relations, and they have a summer program that I did once, and you had to negotiate your way in.
Nice.
Not an application. You had to sit there and come. I want to come here for these reasons. Negotiate.
That's pretty good.
So
I like that.
That's what you had to do. Negotiate your way into the band.
Yep. And he said you can play any instrument you want, and I went through the list right in front of him. I said trumpet, trombone, drums, bass, piano, and I said saxophone, and I said saxophone, and that was it. And I don't know why I picked the saxophone. I knew what a saxophone was, but I couldn't have told you what it sounded like or anything. And that kind of was it. I went to Schenectady Community College, and actually I remembered the day the Air Force band came to Proctor's and played, and I brought my roommate, and we came and watched it, and I saw the tour buses outside, and I said, "That's what I want someday. I want to be able to travel and play music and do that." Up until that point, I was going to be a teacher, and that was it. And I finished up my schooling up in Potsdam at Crane School of Music, and I played in a lot of bands around this area while I was still in school up there. And when I graduated Potsdam, I moved to this area, started playing full time. Took a while to kind of get playing in blues bands and rock bands and some jazz groups, and did a little bit of traveling, and stayed here for about 5 years, and then decided it was time for a move, and I packed up and moved to New York City, and with the idea of going to school and seeing what it was like, and probably not staying very long, and I stayed there for close to 8 years, and my wife and I had our son, and we moved back here, and basically the week I moved back here, we started the Proctor Summer Jazz Camp. So
yeah, which has been mind-blowingly wonderful. You've been terrific at it. Kids adore you. Your attitude about it is terrific. You've made You've made that something spectacular,
Oh well, thank you.
and thank you for that.
Had a lot of help through the years we've been doing it. I guess this is coming up on our 8th season, I think.
Is it the 8th?
That
Oh my
I've- that
God!
I've been in it,
Wow, yeah, that's really something. Well, it's fabulous. Now you concertize a fair amount, right?
Yeah, I play very regularly. I just played last night at the Van Dyke. I have my big band that plays, and all the different clubs in the area, from Saratoga to Albany,
And a fair number of CDs.
yeah, I have done 5 CDs. I think 4 are still available. 3 or 4 of them are still available, and I did one a little over a year ago that got released. And
It got raved. People loved it.
yeah, it's been people seem to like the CD, and it was fun to make, and I had a great band, and so I just enjoy playing music and sharing it and teaching it. And
Your band, though, you don't have a core band, right? You don't have the
I have
Keith
several
Pray
bands.
band.
Yeah, I have several of those. I have my big band, which is the Big Soul Ensemble. That's a 17-piece band. We play once a month here in town, and we've been together about 6 years, and I have pretty much the same people play every month. Sometimes somebody needs a month off, and we have a sub come in, but it's a strong core. I have another group called the Soul Jazz Revival that has a core as well. That's a 5-piece kind of soul jazz, funk, more commercial instrumental group. Then I have my quartet, which is more revolving than the other ones, but I still have a core of, maybe 2 or 3 people on each instrument that I usually use, and sometimes I like to mix it up just to see what different players sound like together, and other times we'll play together for a while as the unit and see what we can develop there. I put together a New Orleans brass band group. We play once in a while. It's harder to book that one. Trying to find places to play with that. And then I had like an idea for an Americana group I started last year, which is about, I think, 8 pieces with viola, cello, and rhythm section and
Well, we should
saxophone.
talk about doing some of these here.
Oh, that'd
Do
be
them in the GE. We should talk about it. Yeah.
That'd be
We
fun.
should be happy to make that happen.
Great.
What the heck? You're tied to this place, so we might as well keep that tie going.
Great.
So you got to be one of the rare ones in the capital region who's making a living
Well, I
as a musician.
I made a living for a long time as a musician. I don't claim to be a full-time professional musician anymore, only because I teach full-time. That's my main job, which I totally enjoy. And my hours would say that I probably still am a full-time musician, but I guess if you looked at my income, most of my income now comes from education side. So, but I did that for a long time, and just found that I enjoyed doing creative music more than some of the more commercial things that I had to do as a full-time musician. So I chose the creative side rather than the struggle of trying to fill in my calendar with everything I could. As a good fortune to have it, I've been able to keep a full calendar and again do the jobs that I want to do rather than something that may after a while wear you down, and you say, well, why do I really do this? So most of it's been my own performances, my own groups, and I kind of fill out the calendar with freelancing and that kind of a thing. And I haven't traveled in a while, and which is good. I've been able to be around here more with my son. And
Yeah. So talk about teaching. Talk about kids.
well,
What do you find is the heart of a kid that's interested in playing, or what do you look for?
I just look for somebody who has a spark. They don't have to be the most talented student. They don't have to be the most driven student to practice all the time. In fact, a lot of times I look for the underdog. I look for the student who's struggling maybe in other areas, but for some reason they came to me and wanted to play an instrument. So I said, or something. I'm known as the guy also that recruits out of timeout rooms and detention rooms and that kind of thing. Like, why are you in here? You should be playing an instrument. Okay. And then see if I can pull them along. And a lot of times the stronger creative types, you'll end up finding them there. They may not be
Right,
the
they're
most
bored.
disciplined.
They're bored in school.
Bored in school, or they don't have an outlet for what they really want to do, and they don't really know what they want to do, so they haven't found it yet, you know. So, and it may not be music, but maybe music sparks them to do something else, and that's what I really care about. I'm not in the business of trying to make more professional musicians. I'm trying to find somebody who supports the arts, somebody who believes in the arts and enjoys the arts, and again, it could be they go off into fashion, they could go off into, you know, visual art, they could go into music, they could become lawyers or doctors, but those are the people who are going to support the arts in the future and listen and come to the events, and so, you know, it's not my main goal to build the audience, but it's all intertwined. You know, it's trying to build community and really, you know, make a difference, especially with the younger students. And you know, I've taught everything from pre-K to you know, my oldest student I think was 78. So, you know, I've taught some college, I've taught high school, elementary school, middle school, and I haven't found one yet that I didn't like to teach. So, you know, it's, I do clinics. I just enjoy sharing experiences and trying to help people out. And, you know, I've been very fortunate to do a lot of it. So, you know, and done it in a lot of different places.
So what would you tell a parent about a kid in music? What would you say? You know, I've got a 5-year-old and we're doing piano lessons. Would you say anything?
Well, you know, I'm always cautious when somebody asks me my opinion, because I know that there's more than one way to the top of the mountain. So, again, I got a late start, and somebody else may have gotten a great start at the age of 3. So you know, I have a 7-year-old son myself, so I'm very cautious with my son, because I am a musician and I am in the arts, that I don't want to be overbearing and push him away from it. So I just let him explore on his own. And I think for me, that's especially in the younger years, I personally think that that's a really great thing. It's just to let them play. And you know, my son said to me last summer, you know, he came to the jazz camp and just played a little bit, you know, and he doesn't have any training on an instrument, but we said, all right, well, you know, sit back there and just pick up what you can. And so he came home one of the days and said, Daddy, I want to play trombone. So I had a trombone, and I said, here you go. And for the next few hours, he marched around the house playing the trombone and had no experience on it. I didn't tell him how to play it, and he figured out some things and was trying to play his favorite songs and doing those kinds of things. And you know, the spark was there, you know, and it wasn't for me sitting him down and saying, all right, here's this piece of paper, here's the note, you know, here's how it's played, here's, you know, all these kind of things that are important at some point. But I think that's the whole idea behind the jazz camp too, is that, you know, there are other ways than just starting with the traditional method of reading music and going. Sometimes, you know, having that creativity option, you know, real hook students in. And so that's what I hope happens to my son. And if he never really plays an instrument, I'm okay with that. But he'll have had really, hopefully, fond experiences.
Is he still playing the bone now?
Well, then he went on to clarinet. He's had the drums. He's had the piano, the organ, the, you know, trumpet. You know, and you know, he's figured out ways to make sounds in all of it. I mean, he was in diapers and made a sound on a sousaphone that I had in the back, and I didn't even know he was playing it. And I was, what's that sound? And so, you know, and you know, he can play a few songs on a couple instruments, you know, like little children's songs, and I know that he's, you know, I hear him sing.
He's thinking it.
He's thinking about it. He's experiencing it, and when he's ready to get serious about it, I'll help him out however I can. You know? Yeah.
So, what do you see for the jazz camp in the future? You know, not so much the future. 10 years out, what happens here? What do you do?
I tell you, first of all, Arthur Falbush has been basically my co-director since we started. We you know, we met in New York City, and we had similar ideas about education and music and how it should be taught, especially jazz music. And we felt like there was something missing in education about jazz, being that it's America's music, and yet it's very much emphasis on classical music, which is great, of course, but you know, nobody has to learn much about jazz at all. It seems kind of odd that it's our culture and you know, we're not promoting it somehow. So, you know, and the traditional method of learning was always by ear, and so most of the schools teach it through reading. So it's not a new idea what we're doing, but it may be in a new presentation. You know, I don't know of any other programs that have had large numbers of people doing it all by ear at the same time. So we hope that continues, but we're hoping to, it started last year. We actually had a school teacher take the camp, and I've already heard that one school teacher wants to take it this year. And what we're hoping is that we can teach teachers how to use these concepts in school. And a lot of them may have never had any improvisation training and those kinds of things, so they come to the camp, they learn the method, and you know, and can hopefully take some of it back to the schools, and then hopefully that spreads. So, you know, I would like to see it, you know, some sort of professional development option at some point, you know,
yeah.
for teachers, and you know, and again, it's about community. So that's what's interesting about the camp to us, is that we've had everything from 5 years old, I think, to 70, I think, or close to 70, and all different levels of experiences, and they all work together and they all help each other. Sometimes the youngest student helps out the oldest student and vice versa, and there's no egos and there's nothing. It's just everybody wants to help out for the final concert. So that's what we want to see grow. You know, it's the music part of it takes care of itself. The students, once they get an idea of how it works, they love to do it. So we just keep hoping it keeps expanding. I mean, you know, I keep telling everybody here, if I can get 1,000 students, well, let's get 1,000 students. You know, you may have to build a new facility for it, but you know.
That's okay. We'll do it. No
All right.
problem. We're on. It's great. It's absolutely fabulous.
So we're having fun, and we're trying to just keep it growing and keep it strong.
Keith Prey, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Keith Prey, saxophonist, performer, educator at our summer camps for jazz. And this is Impact. I'm Philip Morris. Thank you for joining us. Proctors, bringing the best in arts, education, and entertainment.